Everyone joining us. I don't know what happened to my last part of my live video that I just did, but we're going to try this again. So take two. Today's lesson is going to come from the Old Testament. It is a story that shows a very interesting example of different mothers. But before we get into that, let's talk about who or what a mother really is. There are many definitions out there for the word mother, and it ranges from verbs to nouns. There are many that associate the term mother with someone who has birthed a child. And as much as that is technically an accurate definition, I don't necessarily think that that's a very fair definition. Even expanding the thought to having a child you birthed or adopting a child that you're now caring for, that does not automatically make you a mother. Now, when I asked my youth last Wednesday to describe a mother, not necessarily their own mother, but give me some characteristics of mothers, I heard someone that makes sure you're fed, someone that cares about you and cares for you, someone who is willing to help you succeed, to give you wisdom and guidance. Now, I pointed out that a lot of these characteristics can describe more than just their mother. And then I asked them how many of them had grandmothers that fit that description. And I had quite a few of them raise their hands. I said, how many of them have friends, parents, or teachers or aunts that fit that description? And a lot of them raised their hand. I even had one of the youth tell me that an older sister can be like a mother, which I think is a completely fair statement. Mothers are the women in our lives that celebrate the victories and pick us up off the ground when we're defeated. Mothers are the women who sometimes need to make very hard decisions about something that's important for someone else and may have to put themselves on the back burner. A mother is someone that is loving, kind, gentle, often selfless. A mother takes in children that, due to circumstances that have nothing to do with the children at all, and they just can't live with their parents. And that mother provides love and comfort and basic necessities, and that can go on for either a short period of time or a long period of time. A mother is a woman who adopts a child to give them the security of a family, and to care and love them the way every human being deserves to be cared for and loved. A mother is a woman who wants to be one with every fiber in her being. She wants to be a mother, but maybe she can't have kids of her own. So instead, that same woman focuses her energy on the kids that are in her life, whether it be the kids at church. Maybe she's a teacher, so it's the kids in her Sunday school classroom. Maybe it's someone who steps in to help coach park and rec leagues. Maybe it's someone who focuses on her friends' kids. That is a mother. A mother is someone that comes into a pre-existing family but loves those kids as if they're her own. A birth mother is a woman who carries a child through pregnancy and gives birth, but maybe has to make a very difficult decision, one that she doesn't want to make. But because it's in the best interest of her child, she gives her child up to protect them and are often made to feel like failures, because that same mother should have chose differently. A mother is someone that feels the pain of the children in her lives and would do anything she could to take it away. Sometimes the same women blame themselves because they think they should have been able to do something to prevent their child from being hurt. We have so many examples biblically of mothers that we could celebrate, but today we're going to look at a very exceptional an extraordinary example of a mother, or I should say mothers, because technically there's more than one to the same child at hand. Today's lesson comes from the second chapter of Exodus, verses 1 through 10. Now, a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him from the water." Now, something very interesting that we need to understand, the events that surround Moses' birth is a clear demonstration of the working power of God. God gave Moses life. God protected Moses' life by putting different women in place and using different elements to do so. Moses was a very key person to come into a role when it was going to be time for God to fulfill his promise to Abraham. Now, right away, we hear about a Levite woman becoming pregnant and birthing a son. In this passage, the name of this woman is nowhere to be found. But if we were to jump ahead to Exodus chapter 6, we see the genealogy of Moses. And we later find that his mother's name is Jochebed, which means Yahweh is glory. Now, according to the Encyclopedia of Jewish Women, Jochebed is notable as the first person in the Bible to have a name with the divine element Yah, a shortened form of Yahweh. The tradition that Moses announces to the Israelites that Yahweh is the name of their God is embedded in his maternal lineage. Now, when we hear that Jochebed finds out she's pregnant, she realizes that her child is a fine boy, okay? So she hides him away for 3 months. But then the question's begged, why on earth would she have to hide him away for 3 months? That doesn't make any sense. Well, at this time, the very oppressive Pharaoh had put in a decree that pretty much said all male Hebrew children were to be killed. So she had no choice but to try to protect him and hide him so no one knew that he existed. Now, Moses was born at a time where this superpower made his life very dangerous, but he had very faithful parents that by their actions of hiding him away, it would later be recalled in the New Testament book of Hebrews, where it says, by faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born because they saw he was no ordinary child and they were not afraid of the king's edict. Now, Jochebed was going to have to do the toughest thing that any mother should ever have to do. After she realized she could no longer hide him, she had to make what can only be described as an ancient flotation device, a waterproof basket, and placed him in that basket and hid him in the reeds. Now, this woman is a woman after my own heart because she managed to find a way to obey the Pharaoh while thoroughly disobeying the Pharaoh. So like I previously mentioned, the Pharaoh put a decree in that all Hebrew male children were supposed to be killed. Now, at one point, he even went as far as to say to throw them in the river. So she obeyed him by placing her son in the river. She just did so by using a waterproof basket. And I high five her for that. Good job. Go, Yocheved. Good job. Now, this is an example of a mother that had to put her trust of the child's wellness and future in the hands of God with a hope that someday Moses might be returned to her. To make matters even worse, Yocheved's sister had to watch from afar. She had to watch what her mother was going to do, and she had to watch to see what would happen to her baby brother. Now is where we start to see God putting multiple women in his path to continue this protective instinct, motherly instinct. Miriam, who's the sister, is standing along the riverbank, like I mentioned, watching to see what happens. Then God uses Pharaoh's daughter, who is going to play a very pivotal role in this entire situation. She was filled with compassion after seeing the child in the basket crying. She wanted to save him. She wanted to protect him. She wanted to nurture him, to educate him. The Pharaoh's daughter needed to find somebody that could nurse this child. She realized it was a Hebrew boy. Miriam notices that she realizes this, so Miriam approaches her and says, "Would you like me to get a Hebrew woman to nurse him?" Pharaoh's daughter thought that was a grand old idea. So now we've got the Pharaoh's daughter stepping in, Moses' sister Miriam stepping in, and who does Miriam grab as the Hebrew woman to nurse Moses? His own mother. Miriam grabs Yocheved. So, whether it was on purpose or not, and it wasn't, the servant offered to go grab Yocheved. Little did she know, little did the Pharaoh's daughter know, that Moses' own mother would be the one that Miriam was going to retrieve. You know, God's humor can't get any better than this, guys. I mean, seriously. Not only now was Yocheved able to save her son by putting him in a basket, but now the Pharaoh's daughter, who figured out he was Hebrew, chose not to have him killed and chose to pretty much chose to adopt him, but also had Miriam bring in the child's own birth mother to be able to be there in his formative years. You can't make this up. God's amazing. That's all I have to say. Because Yocheved would be able to be there, she was now going to be able to not only nurse him and care for him in that motherly way she wanted to do, but she was also going to be able to educate him about the Lord and pass down the knowledge of the promises made by their ancestors. Pharaoh's daughter would adopt him and officially name him Moses. Now, Moses means drawn from the water. What's amazing about this name is that it's actually Hebrew in origin and not Egyptian at all. So this points to the fact that there had to be at least some familiarity with the language of the Israelites. This name also gives an inkling that the Pharaoh's daughter really did understand from the get-go that he was Jewish by birth. She wasn't naive to that. There's also a chance that she chose that word not only because it fit his Hebrew heritage, but because she could also claim it to be a play on the Egyptian word Mose, which means son of or born of, and that would have been very common for pharaohs at this time. Still, the irony of the whole situation is the name choice and the fact that the daughter of the oppressor would raise the man who would later liberate the people who were weakened by the Pharaoh himself. Again, God's humor. He's quick. Got to keep up. So now we've got the fact that Moses would grow up in a largely royal-based family. He would be fluent in Egyptian and Hebrew language. This child was carefully protected by God through the women that God placed in his path. He would later have the destiny of a lifetime. Now, the time frame of the development of this liberator and the people and elements that would be used shows us that God's timing is not our own timing. God's pace is not our own pace. But the one thing we can rest in is that God doesn't really rely on improvisation. God already has a plan laid out. Now, whether we as human beings allow for that plan to run smoothly, that's kind of on us and our choice, but God is there to try to get us back on track. God is there our entire journey, but God doesn't just randomly go, let's try this today and see what happens. God's got a plan. He's got it laid out. He's patient. He's loving. He works to prepare each one of us for extraordinary and through ordinary and extraordinary events and ordinary and extraordinary people that he places in our lives. Moses had a multitude of extraordinary women who were mothers. His Hebrew birth mother, who would be part of his life, had to sacrifice doing it the way she wanted to do it. She had to give up her son so that he would be protected. Miriam saw a chance to step in and to keep her own mother and to keep herself in a way attached to Moses by bringing her in when the Pharaoh's daughter realized he was Hebrew and needed a nurse. The Pharaoh's daughter stepped in to save this Hebrew child, to protect him, to love him. The Pharaoh's daughter adopted him, made sure he would get the opportunities that God already put in place. The women in our lives that may or may not be our original mothers are the ones that should be celebrated. The women in our lives are ordinary and extraordinary in their own right, and they have helped shape each and every one of us into whom we are today. So again, a happy belated Mother's Day to all women out there. Whether you have a child you have birthed, whether you have a child you have adopted, or whether you don't have children, but you take care of other children that come into your lives, you are worth celebrating. You have mothered someone in some way. Remember that. You are extraordinary. I hope everybody has an amazing rest of your week. God bless. See you next time.